Mhm.
Austin, just let
Okay.
me know when we're ready.
Yes,
Right.
we're still waiting on one person. Oh, Brian is here. So we should be good to go. Just a second.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Shall we begin?
We shall begin.
Great. Welcome everyone to the August regular meeting of the Implementation Board. This is a hybrid meeting with in-person being the Lake City Library and online via Zoom. I hope you all enjoyed our July recess. We would like to start, as always, with our theory of change. The theory of change being that if we create a homeless response system that centers the voices of people with lived experience of homelessness, then we can focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities to end homelessness. Next, we'll do the land acknowledgement, which reads, we acknowledge that King County is located on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples. We honor this land and its people past and present, and we are committed to directing funding and resources to organizations led by and in support of Native and Indigenous people. Now that, with that, and now I see a few more people joining, Austin, would you please take roll?
Absolutely. Member Anderson. Member Caminos. Member Carvalho. Member Floyd.
Here.
Member Brandon.
Here.
Chair Moritz.
Here.
Member Ross. Member Ross.
Here, sorry about that, muted.
No worries. Member Watt.
Here.
Member Patnow.
Here.
Member D, who I believe is being filled in by member or alternate Futrell today. Member McHenry Jr. and member Reddy. Chair, we do have 7 in attendance, so we do have quorum.
Great. So we will have public comment today. Austin, are we doing public comment now or?
We do it after the CEO update.
After the CEO update. Okay, so get ready. You'll get 2 minutes. If you're in Zoom, you can raise your hand now or before we start, and we'll call on you in the order you received. If you're in person, just make yourself known to Austin there in the room. And now we will move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which has our June regular meeting minutes?
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I couldn't quite hear, but I think that was a motion in a second.
Yes.
Okay, great. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. And now we have the great honor to hand things over to our CEO, Kelly Kinnison. Welcome, Kelly, to the KCRHA and to the Implementation Board. And we look forward to hearing how things have been going for you. You have the floor.
Hi, Ben. Hi, everyone. It wouldn't be my first meeting without some technical difficulties. So we're still trying to get some video. Is it my part in the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm super happy to be here with you today. I have been spending my time getting to know many of you and also sort of getting to meet our external partners and really focusing on how to be in relationship to do this work successfully. I have been here 2 weeks now, and I've met with at least a dozen people, including service providers, contractors, business leaders, elected officials and their teams, some of our wonderful former systems leaders, and a national TA provider. So really, I think starting to get the lay of the land for what our services, homelessness services look like, and where we can work together to make improvements. I've really started building the foundation to work in collaboration on everything we do here at KCRHA. and have gotten just overwhelming support for that approach and for being aligned on the mission to bring folks inside. I'm also focusing on our internal capacity. And so I've spent time with staff at all levels of the organization. I've had one-on-ones with about 24 staff members, gotten really valuable feedback that is going to help me assess the organization and understand how to better align our structure and staffing levels to get to that desired outcome. I am not the only new team member at KCRHA. Irene Augustine is our new Chief Program Officer. In this role, she's leading our work overseeing more than 200 service provider contracts and doing equity-based procurement of homeless services programs. We are doing our application for new funding from HUD and much more right as she's joining us. And she's already been out with service providers and getting to know many of the same stakeholders as I am. On Irene's team, we have 2 new directors. We have Monica Gross as the Director of Special Projects and Arlene Hampton as the Director of Homelessness Investments. And we're also continuing to build out our finance team to make sure our core business is executed with excellence. I am working with our CFO to do a comprehensive review of the authority's financial status and budget. So working really closely with our partners who administer our contracts at the city and county, our KCRHA's contract with the city and county, and taking on a number of other sort of scans and continuing to build those relationships as we move towards the end of my first 30 days. So thank you all for your support with my onboarding. I really appreciate it and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Shall we take questions for Kelly this time, Austin? Is that appropriate?
Yeah. Does anybody have questions? Perfect. We can move on to the next thing, Drew.
All right, public comment. Austin, back to you.
Absolutely. I will be sharing my screen, hopefully. And let me bring it over here. Do you guys see a stopwatch?
Yes.
Awesome, sweet. I am flying a little solo today, so thank you everybody for bearing with me. Usually I have somebody doing a timekeeping for me, but that is okay. So first off, we'll start off here in the Lake City Library. It looks like we have Charlie. Is this Ford? Charlie Ford? Charlie, you will be up first. If you want, if you want to come close, you can. If not, this is the camera. If you want to look at it, and then your 2 minutes will begin when you start. Yeah, we can have a chair up here. Yeah, let's do that.
How will they hear it?
They will hear it through.
this. They can hear you.
Yeah, this will be the public comment chair. Awesome, Charlie. Your 2 minutes will start when you begin.
Nicholsville pioneered a tiny house village in Seattle, worked in good faith with the KCRHA for 2 years to open Brighton Village, including vetting 3 sites offered to them by the City of Seattle's Human Services Department, HSD. Submitting a study that approved getting bids for utility installation and securing a donor for 14 tiny houses on advice from the Homeless Department of AHD. Nicholsville reached an agreement with the Lighthouse Temple Church to be the face sponsor of the site. Following the ordinance for site and encampment for tiny house village, Nicholsville consorted HSD and KCRHA regarding required community notification meetings. Told to arrange and conduct a meeting themselves after the hand delivered distribution of 1,200 flyers in a half-mile radius of the proposed site. Community notification meeting was held on February 16, 2024. Not one single Brighton neighbor or anyone from the city of Seattle was or KCRHA community an objection to the.
That's that. You can stop at your stop point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up I have is Peggy.
I'm gonna go a little closer, even
Yeah.
though I have the teacher voice.
Hey, no worries. All righty, your 2 minutes will start when you begin.
This is regarding Seattle Human Services Department, HSD, and the King County Regional Homelessness Authority abruptly canceling Nicholsville's Brighton Village following 2 years of work after NIMBYs complained, despite record numbers of homeless deaths. Not one single Brighton neighbor nor anyone from the city of Seattle's HSD or KCRHA communicated an objection to the day, time, or virtual venue of our community notification meeting in February. And no one said they had not received one of those 1,200 flyers. In fact, prior to the notifications meeting, there was an alignment meeting with HSD, RHA, and Nicholsville. After the meeting, a handful of neighbors began complaining to the Department of Neighborhoods, asking how the site was chosen. Rather than answering this question, which can only be answered by HSD, pressure began to be applied to Nicholsville to repeat the community notification meeting. Representatives from Nicholsville met with the Director of Homelessness to express their reservations about repeating a successful notification meeting. Repeating a successful community notification meeting would set a poor precedent for all service providers. A small percentage of neighbors will never be satisfied, no matter the number of meetings. Nicholsville proposed other community engagement events for Brighton Village neighbors. One of them, an open house at our Central District location with a sit-down meeting to be held there. Director Clayson expressed enthusiasm for the proposed open house and said he would pass the idea along to the Department of Neighborhoods.
Thank you, Peggy. Next up I have is Mark. Hi, Mark. You want to sit here, and then once you begin, your 2 minutes will start.
Okay. Unfortunately, the Department of Neighborhoods fell under the influence of the same small amount of group of NIMBYs who debated among themselves regarding every day, time, and location put forward. Despite numerous invitations to direct relevant questions about Nicholsville operations, to us, just 2 neighbors contacted us with questions, which were answered promptly and to their satisfaction. Nicholsville was asked to conduct a community engagement event at one of 3 locations offered by the Department of Neighborhoods. Nicholsville chose the Rainier Beach Public Library and notified KCRHA of our plan to hold a listening session on July 21st, and that their email list of neighbors could be notified. Although we did note we were awaiting confirmation of the room reservation, the listening session notification was posted on the Nicholsville Facebook page and website. Large posters were hung in 5 spots on the fence around the site. 3 staff members from KCRHA and a member of the faith organization sponsoring Nicholsville Central District attended the listening session as the sole guest. All attendees praised Nicholsville presentation. On Tuesday, August 6th, our staff organizer was invited to an impromptu meeting by KCRHA, in which he was told that Nicholsville would face barriers to opening Brighton Village unless it held a 3rd community engagement event. Upon further questioning of the KCRHA staff member, said the Brighton Village permits would be pulled if Nicholsville did not comply. Our staff organizer replied that such a decision would need to be agreed by our central committee meeting on Wednesday, rather than wait 48 hours to hear from our homeless participants themselves and consider a compromise. KCRHR sent our letter organizer a letter stating that HSC was pulling the Brighton site from consideration.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I have Tim Duffy. Hi, Tim. Your 2 minutes will start as soon as you start.
Nicholsville will celebrate its 16th anniversary with a party and crafts auction on September 21st, 2024. A cursory look at our social media demonstrates to those with genuine interest our ongoing success at community engagement. Indeed, one of our outreach events for Brighton Village neighbors was an invitation to the party, to be followed by an open house at Brighton Village within 1 month of its opening. Nicholsville welcomes community engagement, a requirement under our agreement with the city and KCRHA. Our lengthy history shows there is no requirement or necessity for Nicholsville to be micromanaged in its community engagement events. Complicating this issue is the problematic and frustrating demand that Nicholsville was admonished over a year ago not to communicate directly with HSD, but to address HSD solely through KCRHA staff. The high degree of turnover at KCRHA made even basic one-on-one communications dysfunctional. Our staff often finds themselves in the position of educating KCRHA staff about conversations, agreements, and situations which had previously been resolved with a string of KCRHA staffers who have since moved on.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anybody else in the Seattle Public Library that would like to speak? And for the record, I know you sent me an email. Is this the email as well?
This is a press release that will be issued today to the press, and you may take that.
Okay, sweet. Thank you. Awesome. So IB members, I have received it via email. I will be forwarding it to you at the conclusion of this meeting from Nicholsville as written public comment.
I just have a question for them.
Usually those are at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. So next we will move on to the folks on Zoom. First up I have is somebody named Community Court. Community Court, you've been given permission to speak. If you can also provide your name, that'd be.
This is Implementation Board Member Mike D. This is
Oh,
a good
hi.
example of what's wrong with using webinar format and having the chat disabled. I've been here since the beginning of the meeting for the record.
Thank you, Mike. I will be adding you to panelists now, and
Thank you.
alrighty, after that, next we have is Mike Matthias. Mike, you've been given permission to speak. If you'd like to unmute, test your mic, and then your 2 minutes will begin after that.
Let's give it a shot. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Mike.
Great. Go ahead and start me off. This is Mike Matthias. I'm the Executive Director of Anything Helps, and I'd like to address a concern that I have regarding the relationship that I've observed between the KCRHA and the Continuum of Care Board. The COC Board was appointed as the advisory committee to the KCRHA to provide critical guidance and leverage the expertise and insights of its members to enhance our homelessness strategies here in this county. And it doesn't seem like the advisory role is being utilized or actually applied to the work as intended. I'm aware that historically, from my experience, some of these board seats have not always been filled by, candidates providing you a lot of value. That's at least my assumption because, it seems like the COC board and the members within it are treated as if they'll all provide very little value to you. And that's demonstrated to me by the implementation board not meeting with the COC board or providing any reporting to them for long periods of time. That lack of interaction demonstrates that perceived lack of value in the relationship, and it undermines the potential benefits of the COC board's advisory role to you guys. That's from an observer's perspective. I mean, I don't know what goes on internally, but I can say that, with confidence that if the KCRHA feels that they aren't receiving the expected value from that relationship, this board's duty is to help the COC board find candidates that will give you that value. And right now, you've got a lot of really highly engaged, highly, perceptive and qualified candidates on that board that are doing amazing work that isn't being checked in on, isn't being valued, at least to them. And I'm really worried that, if they don't start feeling that their contributions are valued by the KCRHA, it may lead them to consider looking elsewhere for a collaborative applicant. So I just wanted to mention that concern, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next up I have signed on is Bill. Bill, you've been given permission to speak. If you want to unmute, test your mic, then your 2 minutes will begin after your test.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Bill.
Thank you, Austin. Implementation board members and staff. I'm the Reverend Bill Curlin Hackett. I direct the Interfaith Task Force on Homelessness. I'm making a first formal request that the authority resume its oversight of the Vehicle Residency Work Group. This group was established within the authority in fall 2021. While the authority was getting its feet wet, we kept alive the kind of protocols and initiatives that would be necessary to address the 50% of the unsheltered who reside in vehicles. We even split into a Seattle-focused group and a county-wide group. We supported the establishing of the RV Safe Lot site and its protocols. We went further with a proposal for on-street safe zones inside Seattle and other initiatives to advance efforts where little funding was available. We actually presented to this body these efforts and goals with the support at that time of Mark Jones and Peter Lynn. After their departures, subsequent staff discontinued our oversight, the authority's oversight of our group at the start of this year when staffing took a nosedive. The Interfaith Task Force on Homelessness and DRVR Consulting have sustained meetings every 2 weeks since then. I now request that the authority restore its oversight, perhaps under staff Morgan Modi, who was helping us previously. Without this group, it can be said that the authority is not making a serious effort to fulfill the 5-year plan's proposed safe parking goals, which includes pathways off the streets to stability, not to mention addressing this 50% of the unsheltered. We have meetings scheduled with Kelly and Irene at the end of September. Welcome to both of you, and know that you can better prepare them for this necessary advancing of the 5-year plan goals by bringing our continued work back to where it belongs, under the authority's oversight. We're also working to resume faith-based safe parking, totally neglected, already starting new meetings in Federal Way, sustaining the suburban efforts now that are more than 10 years old in places like Kirkland, and a new lot that just started recently in Bellevue. I'm sure most of you have no idea. So
Thank you, Bill. Alrighty, I also had Ruby raise their hand. I'm gonna ask 3 times if they, for anybody in library or in Zoom, if they want to provide public comment, please raise your hand. Oh, we got Elizabeth. Elizabeth has been coming in and out. Elizabeth, you've been given permission to speak. If you want to unmute, test your mic, your 2 minutes will start after that.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, Elizabeth.
All right. I'm Elizabeth Maupin. I live in East King County. I serve on the Continuum of Care Board. I would echo what you have heard from Bill Curlin Hackett. We have a lot of people out here who do live in vehicles. And it is important that that segment of the unhoused population be considered. I also have some questions about the right-of-way initiative. You're going to find housing through a large lease that would amount to a little over $20,000 per unit, and get people out of the right-of-way. I'm wondering if such funding is also available for people who are not in the right-of-way. It seems that if we only focus on that, there will be people moving from other areas back into the right-of-way in order to get that service. So is there any plan for a more equitable distribution? And do you have funding to do this for other groups? Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Alrighty, I will ask 2 more times. I think I only did 1 ask. If anybody would like to provide public comment in Zoom, please raise your hand, or in person. And this will be my final ask. If anybody would like to provide public comment, please raise your hand in Zoom or in person.
It would be dropped off.
Yeah, Ruby dropped off. With that, Chair, public comment is closed, and it's back to you and the board.
Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the right-of-way, or ROW, that's called lease agreement. Jeff and Sean, please take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Moritz, members of the board. Give me 1 second while I share my screen. Can you all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we can, Sean.
Fantastic. So as you said, Chair, this presentation is for Resolution 2024-14. It is seeking approval for another master lease for the ROW initiative. And so just really briefly, the right-of-way initiative, our approach in the right-of-way initiative has been to offer housing options that meets people's needs. One of the keystones or cornerstones of this program is that outreach has sufficient time for the needed engagement to build relationships with people living in encampments in the right of way and come up with viable housing solutions for those folks. We did not do any kind of encampment closure until a housing plan is in place for everyone before we close the site. And so we had an initial one-time award of $49 million. That was primarily invested in shelter and temporary options and securing outreach teams. We also did purchase one building specifically for the right-of-way, the Gene Darcy Place. And we have an ongoing award of $16 million. And so that $16 million is meant to continue to fund housing for folks that were living in the right-of-way and who have been successfully resolved. And so as of July, we've resolved 17 encampments. We have brought over 450 people inside through this initiative. And so just a little bit of background on where we are with this master lease. In the spring of this year, we did do a request for information. We ran a request for information from developers, property owners, et cetera, seeking to master lease buildings so that we could be competitive. We did receive 5 responses. Monthly rent per unit averaged between $1,400 per unit, but this was a hotel in Kent and what just was not suitable for our purposes, all the way up to $2,600 for 1-bedroom units. When you aggregate the average for studios, micros, and efficiencies, the average cost was around $1,900 per month. Since that time, we have been outreached by 3 additional parties. We have explored all of those options, and we have come up with the option that I'm going to present to you subsequently. I will say that all of these are well under HUD fair market rent for studio apartments. HUD FMR for 2024 is $2,211 per unit. And as you'll see on the next slide, we've come in well under that here. And so the proposed lease, the one that the board will be voting on today, we have found 36 units in Queen Anne. This is 36 units of brand new construction. It's comprised of 32 studios, 3 studios with lofts, and a single 1-bedroom unit. There are additional amenities like storage units, parking. There is a rooftop deck. There is a gathering space for folks in the basement as well. There's office space. There's bike storage. We've toured the building. We think that it is a really viable option for kind of the supported housing that we utilize in the right-of-way program. With a base annual rent of $753,492. The initial term will be 5 years with renewals out to 10 and the ability to renegotiate at that time. And so I do want to let the board know that this was not the lowest monthly rate. We were able to secure an offer that was about $100 less per unit in a much larger building, which we would have preferred to go with because it would have provided more housing. It was 92 units. However, unfortunately, our budget, our $16 million of ongoing funding just wouldn't have worked. Jeff and I crunched numbers. We pulled things, moved things. We tried every which way to secure this 92 unit building, which would have been our preference, but we just couldn't make it fit within that ongoing $16 million budget. And so this 36 units in Queen Anne was the next most viable option. We will have some additional funds left over that I will let the board know now that I'm working on to fill those so that we maximize our budget. And that is kind of the proposal for the master lease. And so certainly available for any questions at this time.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, there was an acronym that you used, FMR. Was that for fair market rate?
Yeah, that's the fair market rent. HUD publishes a fair market rent. That's what HUD has determined is the fair market value for studios 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. And so generally speaking, anytime federal funds are used to subsidize a unit for an individual, it can't be over that specific amount that HUD has predetermined.
And then how much was the 92 unit building to use? Did you mention that?
I believe the 92 unit building, we got them down to $1,520 per unit. So it was not a huge difference in price per unit. But again, just given the number of units there were and having to lease the entire building, we just couldn't make the budget work. We really tried hard to make that budget work. That's what we would have preferred, but we just don't have enough ongoing funds to commit to that type of purchase at this time or lease at this time.
Do you know what the overall number was?
$1.76 million a year.
Thank you.
I'll add a little bit to that. Sean captured everything overall. We have approximately $16 million per year. We actually did follow up with Commerce to see if there was any means to leverage additional funds. There is not. They're actually struggling to maintain just their current levels of funding and investment commitments. So we had $16 million. The only way that we would have been able to we've been going in pieces basically as we go along. A building costs this much, the services that go with it cost this much. We just have a certain amount of dollars left. The only way that we could have created the funding to be able to pursue that 92 unit building would have been to go back and revisit the other things that we've already entered into, which would entail breaking leases and things like that. So it wasn't a viable option that was available to us. The difference is not substantial. I would also, Sean also noted this, but I think it is important to highlight too that there are those additional amenities that were listed. Sean, if you could put the slides back up. On that next to last slide, the additional amenities there actually are partners that are going to be working in that space. It actually works out better structure wise for the one before that. There you go. To have like the storage units, the roof deck as a smoking area, things like that, so that that actually is a better service layout. So there are kind of some silver linings to going with this building, but we felt it necessary to be transparent with the board that we would have wished that there was some way to identify additional funding for this initiative. We have been part of that advocacy at the state level, and we'll continue to be doing that.
Is that Austin for Marvin there?
Yes. Yes, Member Floyd. Or Chair Floyd, sorry.
Yes, Jeff, so with this unit, there's 32 units. And you have extra funding. Are you looking at another building for that, or is there not enough money? What's going on?
Yeah, Sean just alluded to that. So transparently, we looked at how much money we hadn't yet obligated towards existing leases. Those units are full at this point. And I guess actually there's one or two that I think are in a turnover state right now, but let's consider them full. We looked at how much we had left. We transparently figured we'd be getting in the like 50-ish range of apartments based off of the information from the RFI. So a 92 unit building would have been a big stretch. We didn't think we could do that, but we weren't going to waste the opportunity. So we really looked into everything we could to achieve that. So this would be 36 units. And then Sean just alluded to, we had multiple other options we were looking at for smaller amounts of units, and have another one that we'll be bringing to you probably next month. We need to finalize some things that would be probably for the anywhere from 15 to 25 units. It kind of depends on the specifics of the partners we're currently talking to.
Thank you.
Mike, it sounds like you asked the question about what the RFI represents.
Yes, and I had another question after that.
Go for it. What's your other question?
Thank you.
Together.
I am a newer board member, and I wasn't sure how many touches we've had on this. It looks like we're expected to vote on this. I want to encourage additional touches on things before we vote on them in the future. Thank you.
Sean and Jeff, that's a question for you. What is an RFI and how many touches have we had here?
Sean, you want me to go?
Yes, please.
Okay. RFI stands for Request for Information. It's a formal process by which we put out to the community an awareness of information we are trying to obtain, what we are going to utilize that information for, things like that. I want to acknowledge Chair Moritz was actually very helpful in distributing that information to other partners, given his area of background. And so we receive, that's our way of conducting a public and transparent process to make sure that we have a good market analysis of what is achievable for us in terms of lease costs and service costs, and are getting the best deals out there that we can. And so the respondents to that are, as you could see on the prior slide, if you could go back one for me, Sean, you can see that we had the range of units there, and kind of describe to you like what the monthly per unit cost was looking at. Sean noted that one of them was a hotel room that wasn't going to function for a variety of reasons for this initiative. That was the only option that was substantially cheaper than the two that we've already talked about, the really large building and the what is here before you. The average actually, as you can see, for the type of units that we are leasing, because we're not leasing 2-bedroom apartments and like putting households in that for the most part, we're leasing studios, micros, and efficiencies. The average cost provided to us as information was $19.05 per month, which is actually higher than what we had been looking at with our prior leases, and obviously higher than what we're bringing to the board to consider today.
I'd also like to note to the board that we were able to drive costs down kind of in this round of negotiations after receiving clearance from Commerce to enter into a 5-year contract rather than 3. Previously, guidance from Commerce had been 3-year contracts, which costs more for the lender, for the developer. And so we were able to chat with Commerce, get approval for a 5-year lease, and so we were able to negotiate costs down by several $100s based on that 5-year lease term.
Austin, do you have more questions over there?
Yeah, oh, never mind. Withdrew.
So I'll make some comments here. I unfortunately can't support this. This is my area of expertise, and when I see these numbers, I think that we are grossly overpaying. You know, I don't know if we did like a real market analysis where we actually surveyed what comparable rents for these products are, but I happen to know that they are significantly below this. These should rent in the market now for around $1,200, and if my understanding is in this particular lease, we pay for all of the operating expenses on the property as well, which means that the owner is getting far more than they would if they were to rent this out. I am obviously supportive of bringing people inside, and I know we need physical places to do that, but I would like to make sure that we get as many units as possible. And I don't necessarily know that leasing brand new construction is the way to do that. I think we need to look at all other types of housing and try and get as much leverage as we can, especially as we are going into a budget cycle now where we know we're going to be reducing shelter inventory due to many one-time programs coming to an end. This funding we have from the state through the ROW program is a godsend. We need to use this to bring as many people inside as possible. And I don't think this is going to do that. I also am concerned about just making sure that our new leadership team really has time to get their hands around this and make sure that there's full syndication and understanding before we get too far into this. I know this is similar to deals we've done in the past, but I also know that those deals have been extremely lucrative for the developers who are having these contracts. And I think that there is going to be more room to negotiate, even if we want to end up doing the same strategy. But I would love to look at other options, whether it's hotels, SROs, leases, ways of getting this per bed cost down, specifically so that we can get the number of beds up and get as many people out of unsheltered homelessness as possible. So that's my piece. I haven't had a chance to speak with you all about this before, so I think you know where I'm coming from. I don't have a ton of questions, but looks like Ryan, Mike, and Christopher do. So,
would it okay if I address a few of those? Okay, thanks. And also transparently for the board, yes, Chair Moritz and I we're actually very much in alignment on the goals here. So thank you for your work on this and those concerns. I want to make sure with understanding when we talk about the rate that we're looking at, the lease agreements we enter into due to the nature of like our insurability as part of a risk pool, things like that. The insurance costs require the full replacement value of the building. And then when insurance companies are learning who we're putting into that, I'm wondering if that is likely affecting what you're looking at as a $1,200 per month rate that's available compared to what entities are bringing to us. We've actually gone through that process with a couple different properties where they've asked about our insurance coverage, what can be covered, things like that, and confirm with the Association of Washington Cities, which is the risk pool that we are a part of.
Sorry, Jeff, are we paying for the insurance on the property as well?
No. So this is just leasing the units. So I wonder if that could actually constitute, I wouldn't be able to, we'd have to delve into that separately to figure out if that is actually the difference, but I think that could be a substantial impact knowing the dynamics of the conversations we've had with landlords that have approached us. I want to assure you that we did run this through all of KCRHA's internal leadership and including our new CEO for awareness. So that has been covered. We obviously wouldn't proceed with bringing anything to you all without that having been already internally vetted. At this point, we have not, and then the last item that you discussed, I actually will share that one of the next properties, as I talked about the next month, we'd anticipate coming to you with another lease, is not actually a new construction. And some of our prior lease that was approved by this board was also not new construction. We have not felt that that's a requirement for what we move forward with. Our focus has really been on obtaining the absolute best price possible, fully in alignment with what Mr. Chair, you're saying about we need to maximize these resources. Our goal is to make sure we're utilizing a set dollar amount as far as it can to create as many units as possible. At this time, we're not aware of we would like walking away from this deal. The 92 unit building is no longer available to us as an option. They had to proceed and needed earlier, like if confirmation if they were going to continue to be an option. So we would not likely have a pathway to get, well, I guess we can look at the number of units, things like that. I think this would be it would be difficult to duplicate this in conjunction with other things that we're looking into right now. I'm not aware of better deals that are on the market for us. This is the best cost that we have been able to locate, not only compared to prior work around like Partnership for Zero and working with landlords and doing that analysis, some of which was a very public process. Sean, I'll ask you to chime in about that in a moment. Also the public request for information process that we went through, including, seeking your help in disseminating that information. And so that's why I think that maybe it's likely some factors that are around insurance in our specific population that are making some confusion around like the best deals that we're getting offered versus what you would have otherwise expected.
Thanks, Jeff.
For sure.
Ryan and Chris, and then Mike.
Thank you, Jeff, Sean, and the team for putting together this presentation and the work to bring this to us. A comment and then a question. The comment is, although I recognize the timeline is not fully within your control, I certainly would have benefited, and it sounds like others would have benefited with a little bit more time to be able to reflect and do our due diligence on this. But trying to get up to speed. I'm sympathetic to what Ben is asking about in terms of sort of value for money here. And the trade-off obviously is making sure that we don't stand in the way of people who are ready to move in and would otherwise be able to move in, unless we reject this proposal. So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about sort of who is ready to move in. Would the units genuinely be available for move-in on September 1st, or is there work to be done that that's only 2 and a bit weeks away from now? What would the consequences of a no vote be here in real terms?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It would mean that 35 households that are ready to move in right now would not be able to move in. The latest communication we got from the landowner here is actually that they do now have their certificate of occupancy. At the time when we prepared these materials a week ago, it wasn't clear that it would already be received. And so that would be the impact you're looking at here. And we anticipate before there's a little bit, I want to be transparent. We don't move 36 people in on one day. That actually is not very sustainable. So we stagger, a few households each day to get them moved in, but we would begin that immediately. Within a couple of days here, assuming lease signature and that type of a thing, would definitely be ready. It'd be 35 households. Member DIC, you asked a question there. If you noted, there was a 1-bedroom listed on the property we're looking at. We would be utilizing that as the case management space for our service provider. That's because they need a space that they can operate in, whereas all the rest would be the units that households would be residing in.
And Christopher, sorry, just one quick follow-up on that. Where are those 35 families staying now?
Some of them, actually, I don't know for certainty. Sean, can you speak to that? I think I know the answer, but you probably do better than me.
Sure. There are 16 households that are currently in shelter operated by co-lead, and we are currently engaged in a resolution at the large site, 31 folks currently living unsheltered behind the old Rainier Brewery that our outreach teams are waiting for us to kind of go live with this building before we start to move on plans for those folks, as this will be a significant piece of our ability to resolve that location.
So 16 folks in shelter, but when you say ready to move in, those families that are in right of way, engagement around this building has or hasn't started?
Engagement, it has started again. So technically, if there was a no vote today, there are shelter spaces available for those folks. But it would impact our ability to quickly resolve that site. And there are households living on that location that are ready to move directly from that site into housing once a building opens.
Yeah, some households, there are limitations on who we can always send to particular shelters. There's a variety of factors that can impact that. So some households move just directly into the housing location that's been identified. Other times they move into a shelter location when we don't yet have a good housing match for them, or like in this case, we anticipate having one shortly, but haven't yet, signed a master lease, things like that.
Christopher?
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for all the comments. To the KCRHA team, extraordinary amount of work, so thank you. To my fellow board members, I share some of your apprehensions and concerns, but I want to emphasize that we've got to put trust in the KCRHA team for the due diligence, for the work. It sounds like the orthodoxy and the protocols that they applied, going through an RFI, polling in public, dipping into subject matter experts like Chairman Moritz, doing this process, having the comparisons. It's maybe not the best number, and there may be a little wiggle room, but there does seem to be justification for everything that was just shared. I think what also confuses the matter is the anticipation of the fact that there was a 92-unit building that was in the offings, but there's always something better. I think we need to deal with the circumstances we have now. I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that our objective is being met by bringing in at least this initial group of families and trying to provide, or individuals, and try to provide the housing. So I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of good, and I don't want to undermine the trust that we're trying to put inside the KCRHA team. So I would strongly advocate that we consider that they have done all the correct due diligence, and it's a question of there's always a trade-off, and speed and cost, and we can certainly slow down and do a more deeper dive, or ask the KCRHA team to do a deeper dive. And it would presumably be to save costs and find a better arrangement. I don't know if that speed comes with collateral damage and the fact that it leaves people still living in shelters. One idea that I would propose in a counter is, given that this process is slow and laborious, our process, meaning to bring it back to the board. And I want to remind you all, the only reason the board is actually involved in these decisions is the way the ILA was established was to make large fiscal responsible decisions signed off by the board first. This is in their purview as the KCRHA, finding housing and putting people into permanent locations and giving them stability. So we're kind of becoming the impediment. So my hope would be that we could propose instead, perhaps if we can't move forward on this, is to move forward with a cost not to exceed and give them the latitude and ability to try to go back and negotiate if it really is coming down to a cost issue. But I would encourage my fellow board members to really consider that this is their day job 40, 50 hours a week. And a large body has put a lot of intensity into trying to come up with these viable solutions. And I recognize that this may be a big conversation to be having in a short period of time if you only got the packet last week. But it would be great if we could possibly move forward.
Thanks, Christopher. Sean, do you want to respond to that? And then looks like Josh and Mike have questions.
Yeah, just really briefly, thank you, Chair and board members. I also just want to point out that a lot of the folks that we serve have significant barriers to housing stability. And so what we have found, and having led the housing acquisition team for Partnership for Zero, and literally spoken to hundreds of property owners and landlords within the region, and having had very little success in that endeavor, as is publicly known, it's exceedingly rare for us to be able to secure an entire building. So there may be opportunities for a few units here, a few units there. But what we believe at KCRHA is that when we are able to kind of create that supportive housing environment for all of those folks, station our case management teams down there, station 24-hour, 7-day a week crisis intervention staff at that location, that our folks stay stable better sometimes than they do when it's a scattered site unit. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of it. And so I just want to point that out, that it's exceedingly rare for us to be able to secure an entire building that we can then kind of stand up what I like to call shake and bake permanent supportive housing. And so we have that opportunity here. And I just really want to advocate to the board that we proceed here.
I want to add to that, though that is actually a service dynamic that we look at that does make it easier. That has not been a condition of any of our outreach to the community to identify properties. We actually have talked to multiple properties, including the 92 unit building, about partially leasing some of it, like a floor or just some of the units, things like that. So we would have just transparently brought to you if there was a conversation of, hey, here's the whole building, makes service delivery easier for these reasons, but it would cost this amount more. That's not actually what played out in this case. We are bringing to you the best financial deal, and the question of service delivery by having site control isn't actually something that's at play here. It just happens to also be achieved.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for that presentation, and coming from a lived experience voice, I want to say that when I heard that you have 35 families that are ready to move in, and I being someone who has been in that situation where you have to wait and you wait and you wait, and that's not okay. So I would say to the board that think about that. Think about being the person who's ready to move in, but the barrier is a board who has to make a decision whether they can or not. And I would urge the board to vote yes on this so that these families have an opportunity to move in and get off the streets. Because I believe that Sean and Jeff did their due diligence in trying to find the best the best that money could buy at this point. And we heard that the 92 cost a little bit more that we didn't have. So this is the next best thing. And I would just urge the board to vote yes on this proposal. And that's all I gotta say. Thank you so much.
I'm just going to jump in and make one comment, and then I'll let Mike have the closing words, if that's okay.
Chair, actually, alternate Fruchel also has words as well.
Go ahead.
Just really, thank you for the presentation. I have heard the oncoming of this piece for quite a while. It's taken a lot of time to present the board something that is actually actionable on. I'm going to always caution, when we look at this, we found a solution for the smallest population we will possibly be dealing with as a regional homeless authority. The other 85% of the folks that aren't high needs or don't need massive wraparound services are not part of our conversation at any space in here. Because what I heard, and this, I may have heard it wrong, please correct me, that landlords seem to have problem with homeless people who have experienced homelessness renting units. And I want to say, if they're basing that off the smallest portion of the homeless population, we have work to do. And if the CEO is still on the line, we need to be able to message better the full nature of homelessness and who's experiencing it and how. Once again, 35 units, great. There's still about 8,000 people still waiting to figure out what this process is going to look like. And when I don't see that recognition, at least in the math portion of our minds, of our way of looking at it, mind's way of thinking, how we're looking at it, how are we actually going to spend the only dollars that we're going to see for a maximum response, not a minimal one. And I'm not saying this is minimal. That's why I didn't want to use that word, because it is on the line. It is going to help a portion of the population. But I think our talks often miss what else are we going to do? So I just want to make that statement. I am not voting. So
That's good.
good luck.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make some comments quickly, and then I'll hand it over to Jeff and to Mike to bring us home. So I am sympathetic to the fact that there's people who are waiting for housing. As Marvin said, there are a very great number of people waiting for housing, and I think while it's challenging that these 30 odd people will have to wait, I would really like to focus on the broader number and making sure that we are serving the most number of people that we can that are out there. The KCRHA has got a big and a broad mandate. I am quite confident that there is room to improve this particular contract. If we get a no vote and we go back to the landlord or whoever's buying the property and negotiate, I'm sure we can do better. That said, I have questions about the strategy of master leasing these buildings in the first place, as opposed to finding other ways that have a significantly lower cost per bed. One of the challenges that we are going to continue to have is that we will never have enough money. This model that we're talking about here, we will never be able to fund and end homelessness in this way. We have to find radically lower cost per bed solutions to bring people inside. And I am I'm concerned both about the price that we're paying for this model. I'm also concerned about this model to begin with, because it's structurally always going to be more expensive. And I am quite confident that we can do better. To get me comfortable with this master lease, I would like to see analysis of other options. They include scattered sites, include leasing older buildings, include working with a nonprofit that could go out potentially and buy a building using our lease as a tool to finance the project. I'm sure there are plenty of nonprofits that would be thrilled to do that for us. And so I remain where I am. I would definitely entertain a motion to table this and give ourselves a month to answer some of those questions if somebody wanted to raise it. But I'm also comfortable proceeding to a vote if I'm in the minority on this one. So with that, I will conclude my comments and leave it to the rest of you to finish the conversation. Mike, I think you had your hand up first. Did you want to ask a question first?
I wanted Jeff to go ahead and respond first, and then I wanted to make sure everybody got to respond first before I talked again.
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Member D, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I was looking at some numbers to the point you made, Member Ross. I appreciate your comments there. To give a sense, and Chair Moritz, this actually strongly relates to what you're talking about. There's a substantially older building that doesn't currently meet habitability standards, but there would be a rehabilitation cost that would be within basic. I don't want to be putting numbers out too much in fairness to whom we're negotiating with. It would not be a substantial savings per unit per month. We have talked to other locations that would have more of a scattered site approach or not leasing a whole building, again, we would not be looking at a substantial savings. That's another property that we are aware of. Both of these are smaller amounts of units. I think that I want to make it clear for the board, the options that have been proposed so far. If there was a resolution that said proceeding but not to exceed an amount, it is not clear to me that I suspect that what will actually happen is we will not be able to lease the building that we have brought to the table so far. It was only by extending to a 5-year initial lease term from initial 3 years that we were able to even to get to this level. They have come down. I think, Sean, you said it was about $100 per month already. So I don't anticipate that we're going to see any better deal come out of that property. I guess we can see how that goes. The risk associated with that of losing that property entirely, and the circumstance of how going through board approval would be perceived. I think that might impact our further ability to do leases going forward. And then looking at what I know right now in terms of the number of units we've spoken to, we would not be able to, at this time, come back with a option that would offer better financial viability. I don't have it. We've gone through a public process as well as talked to, in Sean's case, hundreds of landlords as part of a different initiative and numerous other ones since then. So I would expect that not passing the resolution would leave us without a place to put people in, and it would probably be numerous months. And at this stage, we'd either have to come back with a less strong financial situation, or we could go through another public request for information and again seek to learn of new sites that are available. We did a full diligence with, I think, 45 days for respondents on that, and really seeking to disseminate that, including with your help, Member Moritz, and weren't able to locate anything that was better at this time. So I worry that we actually aren't going to find something better going forward. I realized we didn't address Member D, so perhaps this is your question about the timeline and getting multiple opportunities to look at this. As I mentioned, the 92 unit building, for example, has already is no longer available to us. Certainly, it would be ideal if we could offer a couple months' notice for the board to receive and consider these opportunities, because we are dealing with market dynamics. We aren't able to come with substantial amounts of leeway. We have to move pretty quickly. And so like trying to do something where we'd need to allow for a 2-month leeway, including actually negotiating the lease and the final amounts that we could get to, which takes us a while as well, likely would lead to us losing options. That's why we weren't able to provide a further notice in this case. We would certainly like to provide more leeway when possible. It just hasn't been feasible at this time.
Thank you. Is that Mike? Do you want to go now, or do you want to?
They can go.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I just want to say that, and thank you for that, Jeff, because you've answered my question. My question was, if we did table this, would we lose this property? And if you think about that, board, you have to think about the families that are already waiting to move into this place. So I would just urge the board once again to vote yes for this property, because I know how hard it is to get real estate. I too kind of was with Sean at the HCC, a Partnership for Zero, looking for properties. It's hard. You know, you have to get the landlord to agree, and in the meantime, we have these people who are unsheltered not being served. And sometimes it takes baby steps before you can get something done. And the baby steps can bring a momentum that will start opening up doors for others. So I would once again urge us to vote yes on this. Thank you so very much. Back to you, Co-Chair Moritz.
Thank you, Jaja. Anybody else in the room there? If not, Mike, I think you have the last word.
Thank you. I want to thank Ben for exercising your expertise and role on the board. I want to thank everybody else for your comments and suggestions and ideas and thoughts. One of the things that came up as a red flag had to do with the size of the units, 220 square feet and being labeled as studio. I believe those are actually the small efficiency dwelling units is one of the terms that more accurately describes that. By calling it a studio, it's implied that it's bigger. And I think there may even be a legal term there. That's where the experts come in. But so that was a concern to me. This meeting packet was limited on information. We're getting a lot more information today, and it's kind of changing the way we're looking at this and the way I have to take it back to the constituents to kind of see how they feel about stuff. I understand that the plan is to get this started in September. So I understand the sense of urgency. One of the things we didn't hear about is the makeup and breakup of households, and that's something I would like to hear in the future, so I know who we're talking about more specifically, other than those people experiencing homelessness in the right of way kind of thing. One of the things that we're supposed to be doing in King County and Seattle is getting 25% of those experiencing homelessness unsheltered in by 2025. And I hear maybe that got paused, but I think if we looked at a bigger picture thing of how we get everybody inside, then we'd be able to figure out numbers like this and how these kind of things work. Like Ben saying, you know, this we're not going to make it there if we do things this way. So I would encourage us to look at the bigger picture and get that all figured out. Maybe with our new CEO, Chief Executive Officer, we can do something like that. Also, we still have the 10% that are not getting housing. I guess maybe they're in shelters of the right-of-way people, and I'm kind of curious what's happening with that. I also want to remind us that the implementation board has a number of committees that we can use, whether it be the budget committee, the sister performance committee, or others, that we can talk about some of this stuff in some of those and look at the finer details and get this figured out. Something I would like us to consider doing, since we have a lighter agenda today and some time, is to suspend the rules and actually open up a public comment opportunity for the public to weigh in on this. Thank you.
I can provide a little bit of one of the items you asked for there. The vast majority of individuals we're talking about are single adults. There have been a few cases where we've encountered households with children, but that's been the exception by far. Everyone that would be moving into this would be a single adult household. And you're right that these are very small units. That kind of corresponds with we're really seeking the way to maximize the number of households we can serve here. I do apologize if you felt that the presentation is studio on the slide was misleading. I was the one that prepared those slides. I actually was just trying to convey you're talking about a single room. And as a person who's rented a lot, I thought that was the clearest explanation of what that was. I know I personally, actually, I can say that from our RFI, we received micro units, micro studios, efficiencies, small efficiencies, and then numerous modifier names to studios. So I found that there was not necessarily a common term that we could easily go to that seemed set. So I hope that wasn't a substantial point of confusion, but hopefully that's clarifying it.
Thank you.
And you also asked about a broader population, not that is unsheltered, not just the makeup of the right-of-way households. I can't speak to all of that. Certainly our forthcoming pit count should add to that type of information. I will note that the initiation of our work in this space, at that time, CEO Dones transparently discussed that we were making a decision to serve a very narrow group, which I believe was to your point, Member D. The trade-off was that the condition of receiving, which was for $50 million in the first year, was to proceed with serving that very narrow group. And the dilemma we faced was turn down that funding. And in order to stand on our principle of, like, we have too many people, we shouldn't be approaching with such a narrow subset that could be our potentially served population, or not or accept the funding, knowing that there were some obvious inequities that arise from that, that we would like to not see be the case. But nevertheless, we settled on saying we would take the 50 million, that there was just too much need and it wasn't the person-centered thing to do.
Thank you.
Austin, you probably noticed this, but I see that Nate has joined us.
Yes, member Caminos, are you present?
Yes.
Hi, member Caminos.
Any
Awesome.
other comments or questions on this? If not, Austin, I think we can proceed to a vote, or do we need a motion for that?
You need a motion. We need a motion, a second on 2024-14.
I
Mike?
motion that we, am I on? I
Yeah.
motion that we take a vote on,
2024-14.
2024-14.
Second.
Motion in a second. Mike, do you want to sneak something in before the wire, or?
Well, I had put my hand up before she made her motion,
Okay,
but it's a different motion, so it's been seconded. I'll stop.
okay. I'm not sure what the appropriate thing to do is, but I think at this point we can proceed with a roll call vote. Austin?
Yes. Well, is there any discussion? You have to ask for a discussion first.
Oh,
And then here.
didn't we just do discussion?
We did.
Discussion
of the motion.
Would anyone like to discuss this motion?
I have my hand up.
All right, Mike.
Thank you. Once again, what I wanted to motion was once again to suspend the rules and open up a public comment opportunity and give the broader community a chance to weigh in on this and any other experts out there. And so that's what I'd be pushing for. Thanks.
Okay, Austin, is that motion in order?
If it is seconded, however, I would like to note that this was a part of the meeting packet, as well as we did have a public comment period time already, so the public would have been knowledgeable of the motion in front of you, the resolution in front of you. However, if there's a second and the willingness of the board, okay. So suspending the rules, and then you would then, Chair, have to ask for any objections, and if there's any objections, if
Okay.
there's none, then we'll proceed.
So did that second just happen? I couldn't quite.
Yes.
Yes. I second it.
Okay. Any objections? Personally, I'm game for a little shake up here.
Just to clarify, are we taking a vote on the motion to do that? Is there a time
Yes.
frame? Is it what?
It would
What
be
is
the
that?
public comment time period, so 2 minutes per speaker. 15 minutes, whichever is sooner. And then it would most likely go back to discussion and then the vote.
But Austin, don't we need to vote on the motion to?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so that's the first vote we're taking now, is to open it up to public discussion.
Yes.
Yes.
So, okay, sorry, I apologize for being slow. So we're now going to vote on whether we opened it up to public discussion, and then I think when I was asking for objections, that's a form of vote.
Yes. Yes.
So-
And then there was a point of clarification. So you can, Chair, ask again for any objections and we'll be good.
Any objections?
I object.
Abject, also just want to make sure we have in time for Ombuds biannual report 2 for today.
Okay, so what happens now?
So now we vote. Now you can say voice vote. All in favor say aye, all opposed say nay.
Okay, well, voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mike D, aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
Okay,
And then it's in the opinion of the chair, is yays or nays prevail.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
No.
Should we
Do
just
you
do a
go to-
roll call? We don't have that many of us.
Yes.
Division.
Caminos,
No.
Carvalho, Floyd,
Yes.
Brandon,
Yes.
Moritz,
Abstain.
Ross,
No.
Watt,
No.
Pat, no,
No.
D,
Yes, Mike D votes yes on behalf of the Live Experience block.
Chair, the motion fails with 3 yays, 4 no nays, and 1 abstention.
Yeah.
So we will now proceed back to discussion on 2024-14. Once discussion concludes, then we will be voting on it.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? I think we have exhausted much of it, but any last comments? If not, then Austin, can you proceed with a roll call vote on this motion to the proposal to approve the lease?
Yes. Member Caminos,
Yes, on the resolution.
thank you. Member Floyd,
Yes.
Member Brandon,
Yeah.
Chair Moritz,
No.
Member Ross,
Yes.
Member Watt,
Yes.
Member Patno,
Yes.
Member D.
On behalf of the lived experience block, I am abstaining at this time for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Member D. Chair, the motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 nay, 1 abstention.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I think Jeff and Sean, I think I forgot to thank you guys for the work that you did on this when I opened my comments. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
No worries. You've shared that many times, Chair Moritz. It's not a problem. We know it.
Thank you, Chair.
We do appreciate it.
Okay, so the last item of business is a presentation from the Ombuds office. As required by the ILA, the Ombuds office must report to us 2 times a year. This is the 2nd time this year the Ombuds will have presented to us. I believe we have Raphael, M, Mary, and Marilyn here.
And
Good to see you guys, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. 1 second while I share my screen. Sorry, 1 more second here.
Raphael, do I need to, let me double check. Do I need to make you special perms?
No, I'm a panelist. I'm just having tech issues on my end.
Okay.
Oh, okay, cool. I made you co-host just in case that was the issue.
Okay, sorry about that. Is everyone able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we are.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, Chair and members of the Implementation Board. My name is Raphael Hartman. I use he, him pronouns, and I serve as KCRHA's Deputy Ombuds. I'm pleased to introduce KCRHA Ombuds team. Today, I'm joined by my 3 Ombuds colleagues, Emma Sheikey, Mary Dunbar, and Marilyn Castellan. Altogether, we're a team of 5 with very diverse backgrounds. We all bring a perspective of having lived experience to this work. We also share 55 years of combined professional experience in homeless response services, including working among various systems across diverse subpopulations, such as veterans, families, youth, refugees, trans and gender nonconforming, community mental health, and survivor services. So for today's presentation, we'll be presenting updates on the current work of the office, some brief explainers of some of those updates, as well as an overview of our Q2 report. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mary Dunbar.
Thanks, Raphael. Greetings to the implementation board members. My name is Mary Dunbar, and I'm an ombuds person with KCRHA, and I use she, her pronouns. I'd like to share with you about our workflow process from the time of when a community member contacts our office. And then I'll go on to define the 5 types of services we offer in response to those concerns. So we start when a community member contacts our office by phone, email, or web form. And then the Ombuds person assigned to the inbox for the week reviews the submission and will either assign the case to themselves or will consult with the team to determine the best fit for assignment based on capacity of the team and subject matter expertise related to the complaint. Then the assigned ombuds will contact the community member, conduct an intake, and assess the best service to provide to help address the issue. So we have 5 categories of services. We've grouped these services from information and referral, assistance and facilitation, external reviews, program reviews, and investigations. These services are a step-up service, which is a tier ranging from sharing information and resources to a more comprehensive investigation. So beginning with information and referrals, the first level of service that we offer, this is when we provide education about how to access homeless services. We provide direct support, referrals, and systems navigation to community members. For example, providing information about how to schedule a coordinated entry housing assessment, perhaps calling the emergency family shelter line with a family, or referring someone who's a vehicle resident to a street outreach team for help linking to resources in their area. The next step in our workflow would be assistance and facilitation. In this service type, we work to resolve a concern or issue through asking questions of the appropriate parties, researching the issue, and facilitating a conversation or the sharing of information between the parties. This often looks like our team working to bridge the gap between the program participant and the provider. The next step in our workflow is an external review. We use the external review to document an issue related to a provider who's not contracted with the KCRHA. This service option provides both the documentation of issues or trends in the community, as well as allowing our office to do our due diligence by raising the issue with the provider or their oversight agency to resolve. The next step in our workflow is a program review. So if an issue does not raise to the level of an investigation, but it's of concern or demonstrates an ongoing issue or pattern of complaints regarding a provider agency, then we'll escalate the matter to our programs team using a program review. Unlike the external review, this is used when a submission pertains to an agency that's contracted with the KCRHA. In a program review, we provide documentation of the concerns, relevant issues, policies, and our recommendations to the KCRHA's programs team regarding the issue. And then we partner with program staff in how to best address the issue with the contracted agency. Our most formal and comprehensive service that we offer is an investigation. Investigations can be either of a specific program or of a systemic issue or trend that we're noting in the community based on contacts our office receives. Before proceeding with an investigation, we conduct a thorough case assessment to determine if launching the investigation is the most appropriate course of action. During the assessment process, we consider various factors such as the severity and urgency of the situation, the number of people affected, and our office priorities. This helps us determine if an investigation is the most appropriate action for a particular issue. The final step for all of our services is moving towards a resolution. As we wrap up our contact with the community member, we monitor the progress, the response to the issue, provide any additional referrals or community resources, and then we track outcomes data for transparency and accountability. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm excited to share with you our current work and priorities for the Ombuds office, as well as some general updates for 2024. So for our current work, we are working on our grievance guidance best practices. So we're developing guidance on best practices for addressing grievances to be informed by feedback from the community. This is a scope of work we're excited about, as our team will be in the community conducting in-person interviews with both program participants and staff at various types of programs, including day centers, emergency shelter sites, transitional and permanent supportive housing sites. We'll be providing compensation in the form of gift cards to program participants for their time spent giving feedback to our team. Our goal is to draft the recommendations of best practices based on the information gathered from these interviews, and then share with our KCRHA contracted providers. Next up, in terms of current work, we've continued to prioritize our community engagement activities to get information into the community about our office and services we provide. We've done presentations this year with community partners, including the COC peer group, EHAC, NUSA, OBHA, Skitch, and Healthcare for the Homeless Governance Council's DEI and Racial Justice Work Group. We also have attended resource fairs at King County library sites, including Burien, Federal Way, Renton, and Skyway libraries. And our team met in July with Seattle Public Library's social workers to discuss how to best partner with them in attending some community events at various library sites. We're also scheduled to attend Seattle Municipal Court's Community Relief Day with 20 other community providers in September at the Jefferson Community Center. And then the last note about our current work, we're developing a standard operating procedure or SOP for our program reviews in tandem with the KCRHA's programs teams, so we can be in alignment and support one another's work with contracted providers. Lastly, just want to note a few updates from our office. We've updated our Ombuds office website to include our program brochure and flyer materials translated into 23 languages. We're developing a process for better capturing qualitative data, beginning with our team being trained in the use of a new data tracking and coding system. And lastly, we have data from our Q2 2024 report to share. And we've added new data points to our online help request and data tracking forms to include housing subpopulation types and veteran status. And lastly, we've updated our phone messaging system, which my colleague Marilyn will review on the next slide. Marilyn, passing it to you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary, and the implementation board for having us today. My name is Marilyn Gastelan, and I'll be sharing about 2 improvements our office has made to the methods constituents use to contact our office. The first is we have updated our Ombuds office message line to a phone tree. This means when people call our main line during business hours, they have several options of getting a direct connection to resources or to available Ombuds staff. We made this change in hopes of speeding up the sharing of information with people on demand versus having to wait for a return call. When selecting option 1, which is resources, people can select the option for 211. That'll direct them to shelter referrals or rental assistance, the family shelter line, youth and young adult wrap sites, or to be directed to the housing authorities, Seattle Housing Authority, King County Housing Authority, and Renton Housing Authority for information on housing vouchers, which are questions we receive a lot. And the second option is directing people to speak with staff. So our phones round robin within the Ombuds team, and any available staff can take the call. Or people are also able to leave a voicemail with that option. And next slide. Second, we've revamped our Ombuds web forum, which is the method constituents use to submit inquiries, concerns, or complaints online. We separated the form into 3 main categories, which are the top 3 issues we receive. One is seeking information about housing resources. The second is support and problem solving, a shelter or housing issues. And the third is assistance with filing a complaint. Each option generates a form with questions specific to that category, the most in-depth being filing a complaint. And we've also added new demographic questions to capture veteran status, household makeup, youth and young adult, as well as American Indian and Alaska Native communities. And our goal with revamping the form was to simplify the information people have to provide to meet their have their needs addressed, as well as improve demographic data based on community feedback. Next slide. And transitioning to the data portion of our presentation, we're happy to report that the households we've been able to assist continue to increase. In Q1, we served 144 households. In Q2, we served 169. Cumulatively, there were 313 households served as of the end of Q2. And with that, I will pass on to my colleague, M. Ishiki, who will share the rest of our Q2 data.
And thanks, Raphael, for doing slides. If you can scoot to the next one. Thank you. Hello, board. My name's Em. I use they, them pronouns and would like to just dive into a comparative analysis of our Q1 and Q2 reports of the services we offered. Our office offered services ranging from offering program information to constituents seeking resources, receiving complaints and concerns, and producing program reviews and external reviews for our partners to support in mitigating issues. As you can see, color-wise, we have the dark navy blue representing Q1, and for Q2, that teal color. I'm just going to read through it, and we're happy to take questions at the end of our presentation about these numbers. For assistance and facilitation for Q1, we received 15 submissions, and for Q2, 20. For external reviews, which is reviews that would go to our external partners, not related to programs within the RHA. In Q1, we received 6, and in Q2, we produced 1. For information and referral for Q1, we received 104, and for Q2, 123. And you can see for investigations for both quarters, we received 0 submissions for investigations, and these are individual interviews that would result in an investigation. We did not have any submissions that would result in our office engaging in this service. And then moving on to no responses. For Q1, we have 6, and Q2, 9. For other, we like to define this as services not supported by the homelessness system. Folks asking about the public school system, mental health system, hospital system, etc. So for Q1, we received 12, and for Q2, 11. And for program reviews, For Q1, we produced 8, and for Q2, we produced 5. Total services offered by the Ombuds office in Q1 was 151, and we received 144 individual submissions from constituents. Sometimes we offer multiple services to constituents, so that's why there is a difference in numbers there. And for Q2, total services offered by the Ombuds office was 170, and we received 169 individual submissions from constituents. We're anticipating surpassing last year's service provisions due to the trend of increasing services, especially during times of duress, particularly around severe weather events. Next slide. And then we have our submission types here. And just very quickly, again, dark blue being Q1, that teal color being Q2. For complaints, the Ombuds office received 16.66% in Q1 and 11.83% in Q2. For concerns or comments, the Ombuds office received 10.42% in Q1 and 10.65% in Q2. And for the bulk of our work, support and system facilitation, the Ombuds office received 72.91% in Q1 and 77.51% in Q2. Our team anticipates that we will surpass, again, the submissions from last year due to the data presented here in Q1 and 2. Last year, we received a total of 536 individual submissions to the Ombuds office. And at the end of Q2, we received a total year-to-date 313 submissions. Our office has mentioned attending tabling community events and looking for more opportunities for us to engage with our partners and constituents, and would be happy to connect more about that. Next slide. This is an exciting slide to present. Since the beginning of the year, we worked hard to produce our annual report, which highlighted our process, our data, case examples, and system trends our office's priorities we're really going to focus on for 2024. We're proud to report and appreciate our colleagues who supported us throughout the creation and publication of the report. You can find it on the webpage on kcrha.org under the resource tab under Ombuds office, where you can also find all of these lovely documents. And you can also find our quarterly reports for both fiscal year 24, Q1 and Q2, offering additional information on the servicing to our communities through self-identified shared demographic information. Also, the Ombuds Office Primer is available for the public to read, which is our office's guide to the work, as well as sharing our history and purpose in support of creating our office and in response to the homelessness system. And an exciting addition to the webpage, we've been kind of teasing it throughout the presentation, is our flyer and brochures being translated into 23 languages. We just want to give a really special thanks and a lot of gratitude to the partners in our org, particularly Kim American from External Comms for being such a fantastic partner, and both operations and finance supporting this request and getting it published online. So if you have any questions or would like us to send you the materials, we'd be happy to do that. Next slide. And that's the end of our presentation. And we're just really thankful that we get to present to you all. Again, happy to answer any questions and appreciate y'all taking the time today to have a share. And I'll pass it back to, I believe it is Chair Moritz hosting the meeting.
Thank you guys so much. Any questions or comments? Looks like we'll start in the room.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for that wonderful presentation. I really did like that last slide with the publications. That was really exciting. And I appreciate how you guys presented it with each one of you having a part. That shows community and unity. And I love that. And I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Anybody else in the room with you guys?
Marvin?
I'm good.
Marvin is good.
I'm good.
Mike, I'm sure you've got a comment. Ryan, please go ahead.
I've just got a comment, which is to thank all of you at the Ombuds office for what is clearly a tremendous amount of work and thoughtfulness and intention. I don't really have questions because you've made a very clear presentation and I appreciate the work.
There's Mike.
Thank you. I just continue to have concerns about the stuff that is not under your purview that people are still concerned about. So maybe you want to address that in some way. Thanks.
So thank you, guys. There's no other questions or comments. We'll move on to the next item, which is to adjourn. We are only 10 minutes behind the schedule here. Last chance? Nope. So thank you all for coming. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn then.
All right, thank you, Shweta.
Yeah.
I'll second that myself. Any objections?
Well, you can't share, somebody
I
else.
can't?
Somebody
Oh,
has to say
I've been waiting to do that
Damien.
all day. All right.
No.
Damien.
Damien, did you just second it? Thank you. Okay, great. Any objections? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you to everybody, especially to Austin for pulling this all together as always.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Austin. We love you.
I must say we were dancing earlier.